Hello, and welcome to another episode of To the Point, Landlords in New Brunswick. Today's guest is Rob Burke from the Critter Gitter. He's been in the critter getting business, if you will, for over 10 years, and we'll be talking to him shortly. But first, I wanted to show everybody the new residential lease, which the Rentalsman or Residency Tribunal has released. There's been a slight change that they've made, which I think for the better. The leases now, if you can see it on the screen, include an email as they did before, but they put in brackets electronic address. And if you scroll down to the attachment A, section 3 service, it states here that any notice, process, or documents is sufficiently served on a tenant if delivered by electronic transmission to the tenant. Any notice, process, or document to be served by a landlord on a tenant is significantly served by sending it electronically to the tenant at an email address, electronic address in brackets, given by the tenant as set out under the lease and used by the tenant for processes of communicating with the landlord during the tenancy under provisions of Section 25 of the Residential Tenancy Act. So basically, any notices that you want to give to your tenants, notice to vacates, city inspections, fire inspections, any regular type inspection, you can now do through email. The tenant can also send their notices to you via email. And all that is written here in the attachment part 3 under service. I am not sure if this would apply to old leases or if you can update the old leases to make them current, but this is the current lease, which you can now use immediately, which you can actually get on Service New Brunswick's website, which I'll put up on the screen for you if you don't have it. And that is the new Form 6, which involves the email notices. So that is great news for landlords out there. I know for myself, we have hundreds of units. You know, just doing email notices is so much more efficient than doing it by letter or hand delivery. So now we're going to bring in our guest, which is Rob Burke, and we're going to bring him up to the broadcast. Oh, I think we've lost him. Let's try to get him back on here. Just 1 second. I don't see him here. I think I did lose him. Uh-oh. Slight technical difficulty. I'm sure he'll log back in here soon as we get an opportunity. If, Rob, you're listening, please log back in so we can bring you on the show. If anyone out there has any questions about the new leases, definitely ask me now. Now is the time. Or any other questions that you may have in regarding to anything you want to know about. Right until we wait for Rob to log back in, because we did lose him. So these new leases are great. Again, like I said, just having them available to us is great. With email notices and not giving hand-delivered notices or knocking on doors, handing out notices, is the fact that we can email them is really changes the game for a lot of landlords. Especially if you have hundreds and hundreds of units, this is a great way to communicate with your tenants. No, someone says hello. Hello back. How are you doing? If anyone has any questions, again, they can just pop them right up while we wait for Rob to log back in. I'm not sure what happened. He disappeared on me. I guess while we're waiting, if anyone has any topics for a future show, let me know. Put it in the comments. Any guests you'd like to see, let us know. We definitely have them on. And we can bring them on and talk to them and get the experts on here. So send your questions in or comments. Also, if you like the show, and like and share it. Share it with your friends, other landlords, people you know. Get the word out that we're doing this. We want to bring on experts in the fields that landlords are interested in New Brunswick, so we can bring them on and talk to them. I'm just going to shoot Rob a quick text. Hopefully he will log back in here soon. fingers crossed, because I am losing things to talk about. So again, if you have any questions in general about property management or things that questions with the rentals bin, I've been doing this for over 10 years. I can answer any questions that you have while we're waiting for Rob to reappear. Until then, I guess I'll just keep talking. Bring myself back up. So I want to say hello to the people who are watching. I see there's about 6 people right now watching. Please leave a comment. If you want to leave a question, definitely leave a question. I would love to hear your questions right now, especially. I could answer any of your questions to do with anything with property management, while we wait for Rob to reconnect. Well, I guess I'll start talking about some pests that I've dealt with while we're waiting. Our friend, one that I the last 10 years, probably about 10 years ago, was not heard of in St. John, but has made a huge comeback. That would be bed bugs. This is something that in property management we deal with a lot now. They're all throughout New Brunswick. They're infesting our buildings. I know as a landlord, this is a difficult, definitely a difficult pest to control. Not one that is pleasant. They're hard to get rid of. I think, when you're dealing with these bed bugs, they can cause panic in your buildings. Best thing to do is calm the tenants down, treat the process, trust the pest control professionals to go in and spray and continue spraying until they're gone. I know if you're able to, if you're renting to tenants, when they come in, check their beds for signs of bed bugs. I think we're getting Rob back here shortly. You can look for sort of black dotting on mattresses is a sign of bed bugs. There's Rob. Let's get him on the show here before I die. Hello, Rob.
Hello.
There you are. I was worried. I thought we lost you.
What happened to?
I don't know, but I was dying out without you, buddy. It was a bit brutal. I felt like I was talking to myself.
Okay.
And none of the viewers were helping me out. It was terrible. There's 6 whole people. One's my wife, and nobody gave me a hand. They're just watching me struggle and flop around. It was great. I appreciate it. Thanks, guys.
Lots of support, eh?
Oh, it was great. But thank God you're here. I was just starting off with bed bugs.
Okay.
Something that we're both familiar with.
Yes. Yep.
I was, once you give us some education, I was just telling them, landlords, if you had a chance to look at your tenants' stuff when they're moving in, especially the beds, look for black dotting as a sign of bed bugs, because it's definitely something you don't want to deal with if you can avoid it. But please enlighten us on some more information on bed bugs.
Yep, absolutely. They can be brought in by pretty much anyone. It can be brought in possibly by traveling. It could be as simple as something that somebody came over to stay at a tenant's house or apartment that has had an existing bed bug problem in their unit and brought their suitcase, overnight book bag, that kind of thing into the unit of the landowner, bringing an active bed bug into the situation of your buildings or their buildings.
So I know we've dealt with these before. If a tenant moves in, all of a sudden, boom, they have bed bugs. And I know sometimes the conversation is, whose fault is it? Did the tenants bring them in or were they there? How long can bed bugs lay dormant in an apartment before they just die off?
They have, there's been research shown that they can exist for a full year without blood meal.
A year. That's insane. Yeah. So, wow, I did not think it was a whole year. So basically they can lay dormant for a whole year and then someone moves in and then they'll come back to life.
Correct.
My
Yeah.
God, they're like zombies.
Yeah.
So what can we do as landlords? Let's say somebody moves out, and let's say they had bed bugs and we knew about it, or even we didn't know about it and they left. Is there anything we can do after that, once the apartment's empty, to treat it to make sure that they don't cause any problems?
Typically, we do a house inspection or an apartment inspection of the place to see if there's any signs, maybe fecal matter on the baseboards, or maybe some of the signs that the tenants might have left. Maybe some powders on the floor, maybe some remnants of raid products. Those kinds of things are kind of like being investigative and going in and seeing exactly what's happening in the units, so that we as pest control professionals and the landowners can check on them to see if there's anything in there. There are some monitors that you can put into units that after the tenant is gone, that monitor for bed bugs to see if there is a possibility that there are some in there.
Right.
You can use those as well.
Okay. Well, I mean, that's good. I have heard of some machines they put in that give off, I want to say CO2, some sort of gas that humans emit that bed bugs are attracted to. It's like a trap.
Yep, exactly it. And it's CO2 and a body odor. That's basically how they hone in on the next person that they're going to host. That's what they do, yeah.
Okay, actually, I was going to wait for questions, but someone did ask a question, and it's a good question. I previously had bed bugs, so if I have it in outside storage for over a year, would it be okay to bring it back into my new apartment?
In a perfect condition, yes, you'd be good, as long as it was maintained on the property, off of the property for a whole year. You should be okay to do that. Hopefully there's no other issues in the place where you're going to store them.
I'd also like to ask Amber, well, what is it that you have stored off site? I know with beds, wooden furniture, but couches especially, very hard to get them out of it. So it would also depend on the furniture itself, wouldn't it?
Yes. It's still the 1 year would still apply to make sure that you're not having any issues going down the road. They usually will go and hide in couches and chairs that would be infested or have a problem. It's so hard to get in those nooks and crannies to be able to treat them properly, to make sure that you're not going to carry the problem with you.
So probably just be best, if you're not attached to it, throw it away.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's a really good point, Jason. The people that are throwing stuff away really need to make sure that nobody else is picking up that problem. A lot of times, if you're having an issue, the tenant can put the really nice couch out on the sidewalk to get taken away by somebody else, possibly, that goes into their unit, possibly gaining access to the bed bugs into the next apartment building that may be affected by them.
Okay, that's good to know. So what things can tenants do to protect themselves if, let's say, their neighbor has bed bugs? I know that happens in a lot of cases. A building we're managing, I'll go in, someone will have bed bugs. Obviously, rumors will spread, people will panic. I always suggest them be calm, let us inspect and treat, and wait till we're done doing what we have to do. So if you're the neighbor of someone who has bed bugs, what can you do to protect yourself? And should you really, how concerned should you be?
That's a really good question. Absolutely, you should be concerned. There's a few things that you can do. I always recommend, doesn't matter where or what situation you're in, to have mattress covers and box spring covers placed on your bed and mattress. And the advantage to that is that it stops places for the bed bugs to be able to hide, and you can notice them a lot sooner. Regular inspections, obviously looking at your bed, mattress, box spring, headboard, that kind of thing, definitely will help your problem going down the road. If you can detect it early enough, most times you can get under control where it doesn't affect the building. As far as people that have them, that are going to say, well, I got bed bugs here, I'm going to move. A lot of times they do end up taking the problem with them to the next apartment. Wherever they move to ends up being affected by the bed bugs moving into the next place. So it's very important to have an open communication with everybody in the unit, in the apartment building, to let them know, to be on the aware or look out for them. It'll help us in the long run.
No, that's great. Now, Amber did say that what she had an outside storage for over here was a TV and computer. Those aren't typically things that would get bed bugs, so she should be okay to bring them back in.
Yes, you're correct. Typically, bed bugs in general are within an 8-foot circumference of the bed. So it might be table, dresser, nightstand, headboard, that kind of thing would usually be the places that we would be actively looking. If the problem gets worse as it spreads, it can go a little bit farther from that area as bugs start to turn up and get higher in numbers. It'll definitely have a problem there.
Okay. So I know when I go into buildings, I try to talk to everybody. We always, if someone has bed bugs, we'll search the units above, below, and on both sides. If they're all clear, we know we just have to treat the one unit. And as long as the tenant follows the steps, I think usually we're very successful of getting rid of them. If they don't, then, it could get worse. So, this is, it wasn't that long ago bed bugs just weren't a thing. So in the last 10 years, they've come back. Why is that, Rob? Why? I remember when I started in this industry over 10 years ago, bed bugs were like a bedtime story, don't let the bed bugs bite. Now it's a reality. So what happened? What brought them back?
In the early 50s, they had all been but gone and destroyed. They brought out a chemical, and everybody knows the chemical, it's called DDT. Basically took care of a lot of the bed bug problem. The problem with it was that it was very unhealthy to be around as far as the chemical aspects of it. And so they ended up doing away with it in the early 70s. And bed bugs were allowed to come back more and more all the time. That chemical was really, really strong. And they had to get rid of it. It's been banned since the 70s, so we're no longer allowed to use those things. So that's why bed bugs have been on the climb since. It's a lot of it is education of the tenants and people, because of that story you just said. Like, it seems like it's just a bedtime story that nobody really believes that there's bed bugs around. But if they actually are aware that they are in the area, it tends to raise awareness of the people that might be affected. So it allows us as landowners to be able to access the problem a little faster if everybody's aware of it. The problems that aren't noticed really quick tend to go, and as you know, Jason, they can get out of control really quick. And the longer it goes, the more likelihood the process is going to be longer to get rid of them.
No, for sure. And I know for any landlords out there listening, don't jump right to eviction. Work with the tenants, try to treat it, because if you don't, I hate to put tenants in a situation where they're basically bait, but without somebody in the unit, the bugs will move. They'll either move on to another unit or they'll go dormant. So treat them, work with the tenants, get rid of them, and then move on from there. I guess the next one I want to talk about, Rob, and you mentioned the other day when we were chatting, is rats are a big problem right now in St. John. And I know mice are always a common thing, especially uptown St. John, but you mentioned rats were making a comeback.
Yes, we've noticed in the last, I'd say probably 2 years, a lot of rat calls have been coming in. We typically just deal with mice in this general area, but the last couple of years it's been really consistent with rat calls. They're a little bit bigger, as you all know, and they're a little bit more in the basements and that kind of areas. Sometimes can be hard to get rid of and harder to notice. They do say that a rat will live in an area a lot longer before it's actually noticed because they're so elusive They typically aren't out in open areas where tenants would be or landowners would be, and it does make it a little bit harder to pick those guys up fairly early.
So what can we do to keep them out of the buildings? What steps can we take?
I would usually recommend the outside rodenticides, the bigger bait stations on the outside to as your first line of defense, to monitor those areas to be able to see if there is any activity on the outside. That's usually generally the first one that I would usually recommend. And of course, seal up any holes or gaps that can let them in. A full-grown adult rat can fit anywhere as you can fit a quarter. So that allows them to get into areas and structures pretty easily. Once they're in, they can create a lot of problems in your basements, burrowing holes and gnawing at your 2x4 sheetrock or what have you.
Lovely. So can you get mice and rats in the same building?
Typically, no. Usually the rats will usually eat the mice or kill them because it's a food source.
Great.
Yeah, it's a food source contender. They're both looking for the same food sources. That being said, a mouse's area, they're typically about 30 to 50 feet away from their nesting sites, whereas rats can live in the areas of anywhere from 50 to 300 feet from their nesting site. So, you may see rats on the very, very top floor, and you may see on the middle floor, and then you might see mice on the top floors or something like that. But typically, no.
Great. Never ran into rats. We deal with a lot of mice. I don't know if I could handle a rat. And I'll jump out of the way for a mouse too. Not my friends, not at all. Yeah. But yeah, apparently you're saying they are a problem, and I definitely don't want to have to deal with them. That's for sure. So this this next pest I'm bringing up, this is a new one, and I first ran into them last year, and I thought they were just a cute little ladybug. Oh, look at the cute little ladybug! And then they started going in the corners and clustering. So we have our friend the Asian beetle. What can you tell me about this thing? Because I don't like it.
Yeah, they started in New Brunswick roughly about 10 years ago. They were discovered in Edmundston, as they were on the borders and whatnot. They gradually made their way down to the southern parts of New Brunswick, as you guys all see. They are similar to the ladybug, so it's really hard for some people to detect the difference in the two of them. These ones do gather as you see them like this. They gather in clusters. It can be in your house, trailer.
No, you're breaking up on us, Rob.
In the fall, late summer, early fall is usually when they're then they'll get into the insulation, into the walls and that kind of thing. And on the warmer days, like your windows and that kind of thing. They are known to bite if they're picked up or handled. They're not known to bite just as the sake of biting. They do emit a small smell, and it's basically it's their defense mechanism to, in case they're eaten by another predator, they release this kind of a smell if they're in the other predator's mouth to release them so they don't eat them.
I have heard they do smell bad and that they do bite. So what do we do? We've had, I think, the last year and this year, 3 calls about these little critters. I've been telling people to vacuum them up. It hasn't been something I've called pest control for.
There?
Yeah, I'm still here. Can you hear me? There you are. Hello. There are all kinds of technical difficulties today. Hello. I'll just wait a moment for him to get back. I don't know if he can hear me or not. Yes, can you hear me?
Still there?
Yes. Oh, we lost him again. We'll see if we can get him reconnected. So I've dealt with these critters, I think 3 occasions. I've told tenants to vacuum them up. So take a vacuum. They say put pantyhose on the end so you don't get them into your vacuum, and suck them up, and then put them in a freezer bag and freeze them, and then dispose of them later. If you squish them or they feel threatened, they will emit a smell, like Rob said. It doesn't smell pleasant. And if you try to swat them and miss, they will bite. They are taking over the ladybug population. Apparently, they do carry a parasite which they're immune to, but our ladybugs that are from here are not, and they're dying off because of it. So these Asian beetles are becoming a problem. I see them more often. You know, one flying in my car just the other day. I had a couple in my office, and you know they're here. So, and they're not fun. So basically, if you see them, if you have a vacuum them up and dispose of them. If you just see a couple, I don't know. I've squished them. I didn't smell anything. They didn't bite me, but I guess they can. So I just sort of try to stay away from them. So we're still waiting for Rob to come back. If anyone has any questions about the bed bugs or beetles or mice, you can leave your questions below. And we'll definitely make sure that you get an answer for those questions. Just put them in the comments. And hello to Diane. I see you there. Hope you're having a good time. I lost my guest. Oh, I think he's back. We'll bring him back up. In 3, 2, and 1. Rob, can you hear me?
Yeah.
You're back. We lost you.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on there.
Oh, it could be a bad internet connection. It happens. I was just telling the viewers about the times I ran into these Asian beetles, and that, you know, vacuuming them up with a vacuum hose. I've swatted them myself. I've never been bit or smelled anything. I've dealt with them a few times. But basically, you know, I've been telling tenants just to vacuum them up, put pantyhose over the end of the nozzle, suck them up, put them in a bag, put them in a freezer, dispose of them when you can. Is there anything in the pest control industry that you guys would recommend?
We usually would do the outside exterior application, insecticides outside late summer, early fall, to basically kill them before they would get into the structure. So they get it onto the side, and that kind of stuff would be a big thing to watch for. And people need to kind of pay attention to watch for them, and that's really the only thing you can do. Try to make sure that any of the areas are sealed off with screening, like metal roofs are really a big subject to these beetles getting into, getting access into the attic.
Oh, really? Okay. Interesting. Yeah, I'm not a fan of the Asian beetle. Let's move on to our next friend that I probably deal with more than any other pest, and that is the fleas.
God love the fleas.
Oh, they're every day. I keep flea spray in my car because it's something I encounter a lot. I have pets at home. Fleas love me. If I'm in an apartment with more than 2 seconds, they're biting me. Like I almost know instantly. Not a fan of fleas. Just get itchy thinking about them and talking about them. So as pet owners out there that rent, what steps should they take, one, to avoid getting fleas?
If you have a pet, cat or dog, I usually recommend to all of our customers and tenants to make sure that they have their pet either on some type of resolution, Advantic, one of those ones, program from usually April-ish to November. That will usually help a lot with any problems. If you're out, the dog or cat gets a flea on it, it basically feeds on the cat or dog, and the flea problem doesn't get out of control in your house. There are times that, as you well know, there'll be people that are in a unit, they move out, and there is an active flea problem in there. The next tenants moving in don't have any pets, and they end up going to the humans, which they prefer pets, but they will go to humans afterwards, secondary, to get their feed, I guess. And it needs to be properly treated.
Okay. Now, is there? I've heard, and I could be wrong, that there are sand fleas, and then there's pet fleas. Now, I've seen black-colored fleas, and I've seen brown-colored fleas. Is there a difference?
Everybody uses the sand fleas, and they would be specifically down in the warmer states. The one that we have here, the most common one, is called the cat flea. It'll feed on cats or dogs. They would be the only ones that would be in the house. The sand fleas do not survive out of the sand. So if it's in your house or whatnot, it's definitely not a sand flea. It would be the cat flea that you'd be having issues with or problems.
Just so you know, as we're talking, I am actually scratching my leg.
I know, right?
Like that's the kind of effect that fleas have on me.
Yeah.
Okay, so I mean, fleas are pests. So if you treat your pets, which I do regularly to keep fleas down, I don't usually bring them home. There's been the odd time, and my wife hates me for it, but it's the business I'm in. I'm in and out of apartments all day long, and fleas are a reality, and they do jump on you. I know when their staff brought them to the office, and the girls in the office just lost it. So no one likes fleas. I recently had a tenant move into an apartment, which was vacant for over, I think, a few months. And he moved in. I know we had you treat him. He ended up getting fleas quite bad, and he didn't have pets. So how long do fleas lay dormant in an apartment vacant? And what can people do? What can we do as landlords to stop them if we have a situation like that? We didn't know there were fleas in the apartments. It was a new acquisition we had. So we just sort of took it unknown, cleaned it up, moved them in, and then found out there's fleas. So what can we do to prevent that, and what can tenants do to prevent that?
That's a really good question. Fleas are a little bit different from the bed bugs. Fleas can last undisturbed. They can lay dormant for about 100 days, so 3 months or more. And typically, I would always recommend have your cleaners going in and kind of vacuuming, kind of stomping around, moving around. And that's a really good way to detect if there is a flea issue or problem that's going on after the tenant has moved out. It can be really frustrating for the new tenant moving in, especially as you mentioned, because then they tend to go to humans, which is really bad for the new tenant that's moving into a brand new building. They can put a dampener on them moving in. So they can live a whole 100 days laying dormant with no movement at all. So
lovely.
Yeah.
Okay, so Michelle has a question popped up. We had a bee's nest that you got rid of for us. Actually, she's so grateful that you were able to help out. But what do you recommend people do if they have a nasty hive that they can try before calling you?
It depends on the particular type. If it's a bumblebee, as everybody well knows, the last couple of years, we've been not feeding them. I have a local guy that I use to come and collect the beehive. He'll come and grab them from the area, get the queen. He's really good at doing that stuff. If it's hornets or wasps, those ones there typically, you can buy the paper. They're kind of like a mock nest. So you can hang at maybe two corners of your house, opposite corners. To basically, they're very territorial. So if they see a hornet's nest or wasp nest there, they won't build in that vicinity. You can buy them at the Home Hardware, Home Depot, the dollar store, Canadian Tire. They basically look like a wasp nest, and they just kind of hang there just like paper. You can try those types of things first. And obviously, just like any other pest, try to seal maybe old holes from cable lines that might have came through, or just gaps in your siding, maybe a fascia, places that they might be going to.
Okay, I had a quick question too about that, about bees especially. Are they on the endangered species list?
They are on the endangered species list. As of last week, the first one came on the endangered list. So April, I know they're asking about the dandelions. Please don't mow your dandelions and stop spraying stuff to stop the dandelions from going. There's a lot of things that are going to go on that I typically won't treat a bumblebee nest. Like I said, I call this beekeeper. He basically will come and get them. The same thing with, I'll get the odd time, I'll get a honeybee hive. I'll call him as well, and he comes and gets them and takes them out safely so that, we don't have to eradicate them.
So it basically relocates them.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's good to know, because I know a lot of people are like, kill them, just it's a pest. They're allergic, get rid of them, but they are an endangered species now. I'm definitely going to let the wife know, not that I can't go out pulling dandelions out anymore. Sorry, dear. We'll have to put up with them. She hates bees. I'm not a fan either, to be honest. Yeah. So yeah, no, that's good to know. So I have a question from our office at Canada Homes for Rent. And they want to know, what do you recommend when you're dealing with ants?
That depends on the particular type of ant. There's a couple of different species that we deal with in this area, usually carpenter ants, red ants, black ants, or pavement ants. It can depend on what type of ant it is as far as the remedy. I'll just pick carpenter ants because that's the more common one. They're the bigger ones. They're usually black and red in color. Not always, but they can be red, they can be black. They typically live in the rotten wood. So it's usually a place where somebody might see a window or a patio door that might have leaked for some time. And there would be some rotten wood in there that the ants would be in there having. I would typically, recommend to people, of course, we get people that would call and say, well, Rob, I've seen an ant or two ants in my house today. I would typically make people aware that when they're seeing maybe 10 or more, 5 to 10 or more a day, should be something that we should be looking at to possibly treat or doing something about. If you're seeing an ant or two in your house, there's not a whole lot you can do other than maybe watch what they're doing and see where they're going to. It might be a piece of candy that one of the kids have dropped in the corner that the ant might be going to. And that may be the issue, but for the most part, I would recommend 5 to 10 ants a day should be something that you should be calling a pest control professional in. Okay.
And no one likes ants. And I'm dealing with them at my cabin too this weekend. Not fun. Okay, so to wrap this up here, I'll put out there if anyone has any questions for Rob on any of the animals that or pests or parasites we've been talking about. Please post your questions and we'll answer them now, just in the comment section. So Rob, I know recently, I'm having a mouse problem at a building. And I think you're going to start treatment here shortly, I hope. That's in a couple buildings. Yeah. A question, I have a lot of dog feces around the building. Is that something that would attract mice?
It can. Pet food, typically a little bit more. Rats would probably be more likely to be in looking for dog droppings, that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. Typically more for cat food, dog food being left outside. Sometimes if they leave their cats outside, they'll leave a cat dish on the outside on their patio or outside on the corner of the house or the garage or that kind of thing. Those are all kinds of things that we would look for. Of course, as you know, going through into a building inspection, look to see if there's bird feeders, looking to see if there's any pet food being left outside. And of course, with any of the rodents, raccoons, skunks, those kinds of things would always be watching where your garbage management is very crucial for any kind of pest, doesn't matter if it's mice or rats, to make sure that the garbage is properly controlled in proper bins.
Okay. Now, for people who do have pets and their pet food, you recommend just sort of packing it up at night or putting it somewhere safe instead of leaving it laying out?
For an active treating place, like we were talking about earlier, when we go into a place that has an active mouse problem, typically the mice will like and go to pet food, cat food, dog food, bird food, that kind of thing. And most of them are nocturnal. Basically up all night. Typically, I would recommend lifting your pet food from 8 o'clock at night to 8 o'clock in the morning.
Okay. Well, that's good. Something we can let people know for sure.
Still there?
Oh. Yeah, I'm still here. Can you hear me? Hello?
Still there?
I don't know if you can hear me. Can you hear me, Rob? I'm still here. We have a lot of technical issues today.
Hello?
Hello, can you hear me? I can see you. Can you hear me? Hello? Wow, we're really definitely having some problems today.
Still there?
Yeah, I'm still here. Can you hear me? Hello? Well, we'll see if we can get reconnected. The name of Rob's company is
Still there?
the Critter Gitter. Yes, I am, Rob.
Hello?
Hello, hello. Can you hear me? Yeah, the name of his company, is the Critter Gitter. And you can contact him through his phone number.
Hello?
Which I'll post here. Can you hear me, Rob? No, nothing. Okay. So we'll wrap it up. We can thank Rob for being on the show. It was great having you here. He had lots of good information out there. If you're just tuning in now, go back, rewind, watch the show. There's lots of good information on bed bugs, mice, rats, fleas, the Asian beetles. So Rob, he could hear you off and on. Okay, I was having the same problem with him as well. But we'll wrap it up anyway. So if you want to get a hold of Rob, again, I'll put his number back up here. Give him a call. You can also email him at yourcrittergitter@gmail.com. And he will definitely answer your questions. Or if you want to get a hold of us at Canada Homes and talk to me directly about anything, that you give us a call at our office, 216-3113. So if there's any topics that you want to see on the show or any guests you want us to bring on, let us know in the comments, and we will do our best to bring them on and cover any topics that you have that has to do with anything you want. We had pest control on here once. We talked about evictions and the process of evictions. We've talked about a few other topics. Try to remember them all. And if you like the show, please like and share with your friends and family. Get the word out. If anybody wants to know more information, we probably cover all the landlord topics you could possibly think of. Just let us know. So thanks for watching. Again, we want to thank Rob for being on the show. We did lose him in the end, so hopefully we'll be able to reconnect here when we're done. Anyway, everyone have a great Sunday evening, and we'll see you next week.